Hi, my name is Fran Moore with the Prosperity Agenda, and welcome to Coaching Up Close, our mini webinar series designed to work some quick tips into your busy schedule to help you improve your coaching skills. But first, let me introduce TPA. We are working to end persistent poverty by changing the way that we think about, build programs for, and coach families under financial stress. Coaching is, of course, a big part of our DNA, and we work with organizations all over the country on their coaching program. Before we jump in, if you're joining us live, we'll have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar, so save those questions. And as a note, please feel free to view past Coaching Up Close videos with your colleagues and anyone who's interested in incorporating coaching into their work with families. You can do that by visiting our YouTube page and searching for the Prosperity Agenda. You can also find a lot of information, a plethora of resources on our website, www.theprosperityagenda.org. You can also register for these webinars and other upcoming events that might suit your needs. All right, it's enough of that. Let's jump right in today and get started. Today's session is about building capacity for coaching through a community of practice. Oftentimes, if you joined me on Coaching Up Close, you'll hear me say that as far as coaching, adopting a coaching approach, training in and of itself, training alone does not result in a change of behavior. Many of us probably have instances where we've gone to a training, had an amazing experience, and then went back to our desk and went, how do I get started? Okay. All over the country, practitioners are working to both meet the needs of participants and families while also attempting to adjust to the changing world around us. Carrying these two tasks alone can be overwhelming, not to mention the additional activities that are needed in order to do a good job, like intake, reporting, data collection, actually having a meeting with the folks that you're serving. So there's already a lot that's on the plate of practitioners and coaches. And what we want to think about is how we can create a coaching community to support them in deepening their coaching skills without adding more to their plate. So by forming a community of practice, coaches have a dedicated space to consider how they can deepen their coaching practice. A community of practice also offers a space to develop the coach's confidence in their skills, to manage stress, to center on the experience of participants, and to foster relationships among coaches within the organization. I'll give you the definition of a community of practice, simply put. A community of practice is a group of people who have a shared concern or a passion for something that they do, and they learn how to do it better as they interact regularly. What I'm simply saying is that a community of practice is an intentional space that is created within an organization to simply focus on becoming better and learning more about the particular process of adopting these coaching approaches and coaching beliefs. An FCC community of practice allows organizations to build capacity in their coaches and support them in the adoption of the coaching approach, and kind of takes away that feeling of getting back to my desk and going, what am I supposed to do? At its core, family-centered coaching is a shift in mindset, not just for those who are being served with the coaching approach, but also for those who are implementing that coaching approach. This takes time and it takes a lot of support to develop. Our community of practice is centered on survey data about the program participants' experience during the coaching session. This allows coaches to work together to fine-tune their coaching practice based on what is most impactful for families. And so our community of practice centers on feedback from the family so that we can be sure that the changes that we are making are the changes that will mean the most for families down the line. So you may be asking yourself at this point, okay, Fran, I get it. Communities of practice are important. People need a space where they can practice things. But how do I set this up? I'm not quite ready to set up a full organizational thing and have all kinds of stuff. Well, I'm glad that you asked, because over the summer, over the past several months, we've worked to speak with several of our partners across the country to complete case studies. We did speak with our partner at FGLN, Flint Literacy Network. So shout out to the Detroit area, Flint area, Genesee. Thank you for joining us today. But we were able to talk with our partner at the Flint Genesee Literacy Network to find out how they were able to build capacity within their organization and really cultivate a community of practice. You can find that case study on our website at www.theprosperityagenda.com or in the description box below. But all of the information that I'm going to share with you today can be found directly in that case study, in addition to the story of how FGLN and their leadership team came around this idea of cultivating a community of practice. So I'd like to share with you now some simple things. I'll take that back. That's a bit of a stretch. They may not be simple, but they are practical things that you can begin to do in your organization right now, even among a group of coaches in your organization who made up their mind that they would like to really center on this coaching approach. Just some things that you can begin to do to support that in your organization. The first thing is to make space for reflection and reviewing beliefs. This can happen through continued FCC training in your community of practice and should be built into the way that your organization learns. In order to have a community of practice, you have to be willing to become a learning community. You have to be willing to become a learning organization, a learning department. You have to be willing to learn. That means that we're not so much focusing on what we're not doing well as much as where we can become better and what we are already doing and how we can leverage those strengths to push us further toward really centering on families and what is important to them. And so you have to begin to make space for reflection and reviewing our beliefs. We know that sometimes we hold multiple beliefs, multiple mindsets, and we just want to make sure that there is a space where I can check my beliefs and assumptions and ensure that they are in line with the coaching approach. The coaching mindset is one that is strengths-based, goal-driven, and participant-centered. And so as long as you are being goal-driven, participant-centered, and strengths-based, then likely your beliefs are in line with this coaching approach. But you have to make space to reflect and ensure that those are the guiding principles of the way that you work with organizations. Oftentimes we'll become mired in work and I have this to do and this presentation is due and this report is due. It becomes very easy for us to get into the flow of the mundane. So we have to make an intentional space for reflection and reviewing our beliefs. The second thing is we want to cultivate brave spaces. So when we talk about creating, space for reflection and reviewing our beliefs, those spaces have to be brave. Transformational work and the work that organizations all over the country, especially at FGLN, are doing, the work that we're trying to implement requires cultivating culture and an environment for employees to share, reflect, challenge, and show up ready to grow as a person. We learned through FGLN that you can cultivate this practice in a safe and brave space for employees so that employees can truly focus on delivering the best care for their clients. That's what we want our coaches to be focused on. How do I provide the best care for the families and the participants that I'm working with? And so through the case study with FGLN, we found that we have to have brave spaces. That doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy for me to say what I feel or share that I'm experiencing a challenge, but we want to cultivate a space that invites our coaches and our frontline staff to be brave in the way that they share, because we want to learn. We want to learn from our successes as much as we learn from our shortcomings. And so we have to cultivate that space for brave conversation, okay? We are here to share, reflect, and challenge one another so that we can really check those assumptions, check those biases, and make sure that we're operating in alignment with that coaching mindset that is goal-driven, participant-centered, and strengths-based. The third thing that I'd like to offer is that you want to switch from driving to leading. Okay, we want to switch from driving to leading. Leadership has to come to the table ready to listen and center the needs of the community being not only the families that we're serving, but also those coaches that are working directly with the families. We are all a community before choosing a path of action for change to be implemented successfully. And so what we're simply saying is we should not, as leaders, make these decisions in a silo. We are wanting to model coaching by bringing as many folks into the conversation as possible to think about how do we implement this? How do we adopt this? How do we hold one another accountable? How do we create a common language about what is working for us and maybe what we need a little more help with? But the best way to do that, according to our conversation with FGLN, is to switch from driving to leading, to asking questions. Okay, you want to become a coach of your coaches. And so that starts with finding out how to center the needs of the community that you're serving. The fourth thing that I like to offer is to recognize times of trauma. From leaders to practitioners to board members, centering the family as the focus will build more trust and greater sustainability that lasts. That's what we want. We want change that lasts. We want to recognize times of trauma so that we can be responsive. That is one of the principles of family-centered coaching, is that we are responsive. And the best way to be responsive is to see number three that says we have an open space for open dialogue, to share, to reflect, and even challenge in order to become better for the families. But we have to recognize times of trauma so that we're not re-traumatizing our participants or our coaches because we're not quite aware of the times and what's going on. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one. The next one is expect that trust takes time to cultivate. Hey, listen, I know that you're probably listening to this coaching up close, or maybe you've done some reading about community of practice or professional learning communities, and you're like, yes, I'm ready to go. This is going to be amazing. Has anybody ever experienced that, where you're all sold and you're bought into it, and then you realize it might take folks a little more time to catch up to where you are? That's okay. All right, it's okay. We should go into this idea of creating a coaching community and building capacity with the expectation that it will take time. So we have to recognize that the process of building trust takes time and commitment to your community. Simply because you are deciding to work different does not mean that families will show up ready to be worked with differently. And so this means that you have to build trust. You should begin to have conversations with families about how you're switching over to a coaching approach. You should begin to cultivate a place where we're patient with our coaches as they are deepening their coaching practice, not in a punitive way, but in a way that is supportive, that is open to the risk that I might try this and not be so great at it. We want to welcome that type of learning. Again, it is about learning. And so we need to cultivate the expectation that this is going to take time. Just to give you a little bit of, just to ground this a bit more, our partner FGLN that we worked on this case study with actually adopted the coaching approach about 5 years ago and is just now entering the process to really form a community of practice across the entire network. That's about how long it has taken for that organization to adopt the practices and the skills of coaching to support the coaches who are doing the work, and then finally to create a community of practice where coaches can constantly center on the experiences of families to become better at their coaching work. So it's going to take time. It might not happen overnight. As they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. But if you keep up the collection of days, more than likely, you're going to look up and you're going to see some beautiful structures there, beautiful things that you've built. You're going to build a beautiful learning culture within your organization. And then finally, lastly, you want to use collective voice to establish common measurements. This means identifying goals and measurements as a collective will inspire contribution and motivation. So you want to, again, have conversations about how do we know that we've made it to the top? How do we know that we've accomplished what we set out to accomplish? And you want to not determine that in a silo with just you and a small group of leaders, but you want to open up that conversation, bring families into that conversation, bring practitioners into that conversation to identify goals and ways to measure those goals so that everyone across all levels of the organization, from the participant all the way through the CEO, is encouraged and motivated to contribute to this greater vision of a community where we can all practice and deepen our skills as we center on the experiences of families. I hope that this was helpful for you today. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. Join us next month for more coaching tips and resources, and be sure to stick around for the question and answer portion. And of course, if you have any questions about our coaching training program, or if you would like to sign up for the next Coaching Up Close mini webinar, visit us at theprosperityagenda.org and check out our LinkedIn page. Also, I'll be including the link to the case study that I spoke about today in the description box below. We hope that you'll take a moment and read through that, as there's some really great information in there. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye. All right. Thank you all for sticking around. I am going to copy the link to the case study into the chat box for anyone who is interested in reading that case study that I mentioned that we did with the Flint Genesee Literacy Network in Flint, Michigan. All right, it looks like there are no questions this week. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next month. If you need anything, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. I'll drop my email in the chat box in case you think of something later on. All right, there's my email address. Thank you, everyone. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I'll see you next month. Stay safe, stay healthy, and take care of one another and yourself. Bye.